Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Whole Reffin' Show. Your host, Jamie Tucker, is here, and we have a new co-host this week. Filling in for Julia this week is Mike Orange, my good buddy. Mike, are you there?
I am here. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I'm doing fantastic. Today was actually a fantastic day. Um, the last 2 days were just relaxing a lot. Hit the gym once, and that's about it. Watched a lot of old school wrestling. Having a good time.
Sounds like a good day.
Oh
Good
yeah,
day.
definitely, definitely. So, you know, I hadn't told the folks about all the exciting news. Co-hosts are going to change in and out. We got Mike. He's going to be in an episode 2, 3, 4. Julia may be out a couple weeks. She may be back next week. We don't know. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Have a little fun with the podcast. Have some good topics this week. We got talking about the WWE Hall of Fame. We'll also get your opinion on that as well. We're going to talk about a trip that was made in China in the year 2014. That's been a while now. Took a nice trip over there with the World Wrestling Network, which is also, a lot of people know the other groups, Evolve, Full Impact Pro, and Shine. So, what do you got, Mike?
Uh, I'm happy to be here, and let's get started.
All right, let's go. So, WWE Hall of Fame 2025. We got the total package Lex Luger going in. Um, Big fan of Lex growing up. Uh, my memories of him, were, and I've talked about it before, I believe, on the podcast, was when he turned face against the Horsemen in early '88. And then they did the slow turn, and then in Charlotte is when it happened. And I remember merchandise sales just leaving the building. They were selling Lex merch like it was flying off the shelves because everybody wanted to see it, and they thought it was coming because of the build up. And then when it happened, it just threw the roof off the building. That was really cool for me as a fan growing up. Uh, I became a Luger fan, of course, when he chased for the world title with Flair, and he had a storied career, winning the WCW World Title in '91 finally. But the U.S. Championship he held multiple times, and just a well-rounded athlete. Football before that, uh, had a body of $1 million at a time in the business when it was changing. A lot of guys didn't have that, so he was definitely a standout star. So definitely deserving it. He had a run with the WWF as well, '92 to '95. Not a big fan of the Lex Express gimmick, but it was Lex, so I was a fan of Lex. So I supported it. But well deserving and well overdue.
Yes, very overdue. A
Uh,
good athlete. He should have been in there years ago.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what the heck they went on some of these guys for. I'm sure they have their reasoning. Um, but with some of the athletes that go into the Hall of Fame, compared to guys waiting to get in, you just scratch your head sometimes and go, "What are they thinking?"
Yes.
Um, um, I've talked before about tag teams going into the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, on some that have not made it yet. One was the Nasty Boys. The other was the Midnight Express. Any of the versions of the Midnight Express, because I was always a fan when Cornette was with them. But we are getting the natural disasters this year. That's for sure. And kudos to them. I'm happy to see that happen as well. And, Triple H is going in. We move along, but the ones they have told us about. Triple H is going in, which, it's a no-brainer. You knew that was going to happen regardless. Just didn't know when. But now that his career has been over for several years now, I guess it does make sense to go ahead and bite the bullet and put put Triple H in it. So it makes sense. So no complaints there. And then Michelle McCool is going in. But, um, she did make big headlines in the pro wrestling business. And this was after the Attitude Era. Michelle McCool became popular. So, well deserving. You got to have the kudos to the female athletes in the business, and she would be one well deserving and one that should go in. So
Yes.
it's looks like it's going to be a good Hall of Fame this year. They're not done yet. We know this, but that's what we got so far. And so far, it looks like it's going to be a good group of individuals going in. So I'm happy and I'm excited to see it. Hall of Fame is one of my favorite things of the year. To me, the Hall of Fame, I don't know about you, but to me, the Hall of Fame is as important and as fun to watch as WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's always a good time to give the legends their flowers.
Now, what do you think? This is totally off the subject of the Hall of Fame, but it does lead into WrestleMania. What do you think about John Cena? I mean, after all these years of being the big hero of the people, the modern day, I don't know, I can't really say modern day Hogan, but Hogan was the big baby face back in the day. But being that biggest star of a baby face, and just like Hogan turned with the NWO, what do you think about the big turn with John Cena now that he's done it?
I like it. I think it's a little too late in his career to be a heel.
Okay.
I think they should have done it maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
Give the story of the heel to develop. Because this is last year.
Yep.
Like it's just not going to have enough time to develop into something that could have been really great. It's going to be good, but it's not going to be as great as it should be.
Right. Now that we're on that subject, you look at everything that's went down with it, and it is late in his career. Now, obviously, on his way out, we're going to have a face turn later in the year, right? I mean, or is Cena going to go out as the bad guy at the very end?
You got to turn him back to face before he retires.
I think so too. I mean, it caught me off guard when I saw it, but that was like, I kind of like it because we've all wanted him to go heel throughout the years, to be honest. But he never did that plunge, or the creative never wanted him to do that, But whatever the reasoning is now of why we get it, I'm happy for it, and I'm pro Cena being a heel. But I agree with you with what you said. It's really late in his career to do it, but there we are. Here we are, and I guess we should embrace it and enjoy what they give us. But I do enjoy the fact that Cody's getting his because Cody's well deserving. The whole Rhodes family, the Rhodes dynasty. Let's just say it. But Dusty all the way down, they all were great in the ring. One way or another, gave something in the ring and talking. To be honest with you, they all three could talk, in my opinion.
Yes.
All three can work a good match, no psychology, but they get that from their dad. Dusty was the greatest at storytelling and making up matches and coming up with great ideas back in the day. And I love the Dusty finish. I argue with everybody over that. Dusty finish was always be over with me. It's just that screw job, and it pisses you off as a fan when you root for the good guy, but when the good guy finally gets his in the end, it makes it all worth the while. So, yeah. And, Dusty came up with the 6 Sides of Steel. Dusty came up with War Games. But Dusty himself was, to me, he's got to be, if not the very best talker of all time, right up there in the top 2 or 3.
Yes.
I
For
mean,
sure. He's,
funky like a monkey, right?
Hard times, baby.
Hard times. You can't beat that Hard Times promo. It's the best one of all
No.
time. I enjoy watching that myself. But earlier today, I was watching wrestling around that era, 84, 85, 86. Dusty came into Carolinas in 84 from Florida. And, yeah, that promo happened in 85, I believe. And, when he's working the program with Flair, couldn't beat the promos Dusty gave. I don't care who it is. No one throughout the years past him, um, no one today can't even surpass what he did. And it's nothing against the talent. A lot of the guys are, just like football, a lot of the guys are better athletes today than they were of yesteryear. But you still have them few in your mind, like the Michael Jordan in the NBA, right? Um, or maybe a Joe Montana in the NFL. Some guys like that always stick out. It doesn't matter if they was as athletic as the guys after him. But, same thing with Dusty. Maybe not as athletic as um, as his son Cody, but to me, Dusty's Dusty. You can't beat him. I don't care who you are. So that's just all I'm trying to make a point that that yesteryear of any athletics or any professional sport or entertainment just seems like they made the guys of today raise the bar. They raised the bar for them to have to compete harder to be good. So that's one thing good about that one era of pro wrestling during the 80s through the 90s. They made that bar high, and now it's a high expectation. So moving
So,
along. Yeah.
hey, if Dusty is up in the top three
Yep.
of the best talkers,
Yep.
what is your Mount Rushmore of best talkers?
Ooh, now we're talking, right? Um, Dusty Rhodes would be one of them. Um, man, let me get this. Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, cannot take. He had great promos, especially when I sat at home at 6:05 on Saturday night on WTVS. Just see him right there in the studio back in the 80s. Flair was one of the best. Let's see. Flair, Rhodes, um, man. I will have to say once Steve Austin went to Stone Cold, he really kicked it out in the left field. He was really, really good. I'd have to say Stone Cold would be up there in the top four. So you're looking at Steve Austin, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair. Um, Man, that's a hard one, man. I tell you. I'm trying to think of everybody in the business in the 80s, the 90s, and today. I'm going through a whole list in my head right now. And, well, I'd leave that one open. I'd leave number 4 open. 'Cause there's so many great talent that's had great, but the top 3 would be the 3 I mentioned.
You don't want to put Jerry the King Lawyer on there?
Uh, I love the King. Hmm. You know what? I guess I would because you think about his promos in the 80s. He would always draw the big houses in Memphis. He'd always take that territory to the next level. So, man, I know he's my favorite wrestler. Um, yeah, I would have. I guess so. But you got so many other good ones too. So we named 4, right? But you got to think about this. How many other great good talkers for various reasons we can name here? Superstar Billy Graham, Hulk Hogan, uh, people that drew you in. Hell, Shawn Michaels in the Attitude Era was good. So
Ted
many.
DiBiase?
Yeah, there you go. See, it's just hard to think of everybody's name when we're talking about things, but you could go on and on all day about good talkers. But Lawler was good in his territory. Now, he knew how to draw in the fans in that territory, which was the Memphis, Nashville, Evansville, Indiana, and Louisville, Kentucky, and that whole area in there. He was good. Uh, I don't know. If we did territories, I, I don't know, dude. I mean, Jarrett became a good talker now. Jarrett's really good. He's enjoyable to watch. MJF nowadays, the more I sit here and think about it, more people are coming to your mind. But it's hard really to call around a Mount Rushmore. Just like I did that with my top four, you know. But then I sat back later and I felt bad because I'm like, damn, I left off about 30 other guys, that are well deserving of being in a category of their own. So it's kind of hard to have Mount Rushmores. Uh, but once again, I believe we all do have our own that we like for various reasons. But for me, Lawler was his in-ring work. His talking was great, and he could bring in the crowd. But his in-ring work's what got me on the Mount Rushmore with him. His punches alone would tell a story. He threw down that strap, and then he just went to town with the punches, and the crowd would erupt. Stuff like that. And then Hogan, when he did his comeback, shook his head, and he gets off his knees off the mat, and he does that 1, 2, 3 punch or whatever it was, and shoots the guy off, big boot to the face, leg drop. All that's just so memorable, So it's so many different guys, dude. I just love pro wrestling. I love the fact that, and we've talked about this before, you can fantasy play with pro wrestling, just like fantasy football. And you can say, hey, what about in their prime? We have Ric Flair, right? And then we have MJF in his prime today work each other. Who would win that? You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Huh?
That would be awesome.
Oh,
Seeing
no
them
kidding.
too.
In their prime, yeah. Flair in his prime, mid 80s, right? Working MJF today. My God, that would be great, Jerry Lawler in his prime. Let's think of somebody today it'd be really good with. Maybe a Kevin Owens type. Man, you could go on all day long. Stone Cold Steve Austin in his prime. But we're probably going, I'm going to tell you something. Stone Cold was in his prime in the late 90s as Stone Cold, right? But if anybody's never watched Steve Austin in the WCW days, they've missed out. That's a treasure chest to open right there in itself.
Oh, it is. He was good back then, but when he shaved his head, grew out the little facial hair, put on the black tights, and he became a legend then.
Can you
But he
give
was
me
awesome.
a hell?
What?
I'm telling you, dude. I mean, you could go all day long but I was a big fan of Steve when he was in WCW because he also had the tag team with Brian Pillman, the Hollywood Blondes. And then when Rob Parker, which is Robert Fuller, was their manager, he had Steve turned on Brian, and then Brian turned back face. They had a little feud and all that good stuff. And Steve had a run with the TV title, U.S. title, in WCW, tag team title, but Steve never had the world title in WCW. Do I think Steve could have been a major player in WCW during the same time as he was in the WWF later on? Yes. But do I think WCW would have gave him the open opportunity to be himself and do the Stone Cold character? No. I think there would have been a little bit of resiliency there, and have been like, yeah, well, we think you should do this. And Steve would have never made it past, unfortunately, in WCW past mid card. So I think it was a great thing that he went out, bet on himself, did his little ECW thing, and went to WWF. And the ringmaster, he went in as the ringmaster. I don't know if you saw any of that, Mike.
Yes.
Okay, not a big fan of that when he's with Ted DiBiase, but when they let him
$1 million champion right there.
he was. But when he got to be Steve Austin Stone Cold, that's when he took it to the next level. And thank goodness that WWF was in a time where they needed better characters and somebody to step up. And he was one of the guys that could do it because he really did it. And if you compare eras, Attitude Era versus the 80s era, Hogan versus Steve Austin, they're neck and neck, man. They're neck and neck. Out of doubt. Steve Austin will go down as one of the greatest in pro wrestling history. You cannot doubt that. And once again, you talk about Mount Rushmore's, he should be on everybody's too. That's why when I was asked what my Mount Rushmore was and I gave it out, I kind of felt bad afterwards. Got left off so many great talents. And Steve Austin would be one, The Undertaker would be another, and Kurt Angle would definitely be one. So, man, I could just talk all day. I love talking about that era of pro wrestling, the 80s, 90s, and stuff. It just brings back so many memories and made me realize why I really wanted to be in it. So,
Speaking of Kurt Angle,
yep.
It's weird to think about. He had more of a career in TNA than he did in WWE.
True. That's true.
Like it's crazy to think about because you think of him as WWE, but then all of a sudden he goes to TNA, and then he was there in his prime, knocking off good matches. So,
what do you think now? Do you think Kurt Angle, he worked Eddie Guerrero? You remember them matches?
Yes.
And then he worked Jeff Jarrett in TNA.
Yes.
Do you have
those
one?
were good classic matches.
Correct, but do you have one out of the two? Because Eddie's great, and we know Jeff is a third generation. He's great. Eddie's, I don't know what generation Eddie is because his whole family was in it. Uncles, dad, brothers. But what do you think about Guerrero's match with Angle or Angle and Jarrett? Which one's your favorite out of them two?
Man, that's hard to say. Eddie was always great. No matter what, I can't even name the time that he had a bad match.
True.
But the ones that sticks out is Kurt and Jarrett up in TNA. Right after Jarrett kind of stole Karen away from Jeff, and they had a match and everything. The raw emotion from Kurt I think it brought out the best match out of both of them.
Okay.
For sure.
Sure. I mean, I remember them times.
They had one up in a steel cage. That was a good match.
Right. And then you're a little younger. Did I say that right, or you're a lot younger than me?
I not that much younger. Probably about at least a decade.
Well, I know I'm about. I'll say it. I don't care. I'll say my age on the podcast. I'm about to turn 47 this month, and I know you're. I'm trying to guess here, Mike. You may be 32.
Good guess. But I'll be 34 in May.
Okay, so more than a decade. So, but TNA
a little bit.
Yeah. So you really don't remember the late 90s and the NWO as much as I would, of course, because I was already an adult. I think. Let me see. NWO is 1996, right? I was 18 years old. So. Yeah, I was 18. So
96, I was 5.
Okay, so there we go. So TNA, being that you remember the TNA matches with Jarrett and Triple H. I'm reading the paper here in front of me. Jarrett and Angle probably comes to mind as being more memorable and more fun because your age, maybe. You think, or
maybe, but then you don't really see like any old matches of Eddie anymore. Like they play them, but they don't show them as much.
Right.
So a lot of the younger people, they might not even know who Eddie is.
Right.
But it's just something about using like real life events in a match to bring out the emotion.
Right.
I don't care who you are, just if you put that into a storyline, it gives out one of the best performances.
Okay. I mean, you made a valid point. Real emotion draws money. Just as controversy creates cash. And by you saying that, you actually made a valid point. When you got that real life story there, even if you bring it into a pro wrestling atmosphere and make it work, people still remember the real life situation. You are absolutely right. That does make money and does make people interested. But since we're on this subject, and we're bringing up Eddie Guerrero. Now, I don't know if you read this story, but I read it recently, and I'll be honest, I never heard this till recently. Eddie Guerrero was said to, like, this is like WCW did a focus group, like in the mid 90s, right? And they had the focus group come up who was one of the more popular guys that could be over with the crowd, I guess. That's the way I'm going to word it. It wasn't worded that way, but I'm wording it that way. So a lot of people in that focus group was like Eddie Guerrero. So I heard that at one point they were thinking about having Eddie Guerrero become WCW champion over Ric Flair. Now, whether that's a true story or not, it caught my eye when I read it, and I was like, what? Did you imagine that back in the mid 90s, right? When Nitro just started coming on, Flair had this thing, he was with the Dungeon of Doom there in early 96. Kevin Sullivan, he kind of had the Horsemen mixed up with the Dungeon of Doom. I don't know if you remember all that. But anyway, Flair was the world champion. And Guerrero had just came into the company. Could you imagine that year Guerrero becoming WCW world champion out of the blue and beating Ric Flair? Me personally, at the time, I'd have said they were crazy. But that's what I read. But I think it would have. Honestly, I don't think it would have went over yet.
No, first coming in, I probably wouldn't have. But when the same year they was getting ready, like Eddie and Chris Benoit and all of them was leaving WCW, going to WWE, and they put the title on Chris. That's the year that they probably should have done that.
Right.
Because he was good at that time, but early when he first got to WCW, I think it was I don't think he was world champion material at the time. If that makes sense.
Yep, you're right.
Like he was good. He was all over the world, Mexico and all that stuff, doing it probably 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think being on a big stage like that, he should have been world champion right off the bat.
Right. Yeah, as soon as I read it, I was like, is this even a real story? And if it is, did they really think about it? That's something I'd like for that to be brought up on a future podcast, maybe with an Eric Bischoff or somebody that has the insides at the time, to find out if that really was on a focus group questionnaire or whatever, however they did that. And was that really a thought? That is something I may even send that question myself. Because I'd like to know if that was really even a thought at all. But I would think that it would have not went over well at all at that point. But years later, of course, when Eddie and we talked about it before, Benoit, which Benoit is phenomenal. He should be in the Hall of Fame, regardless of what happened there, just for his acknowledgments and accolades themselves. But, of course, that's probably never going to happen. But in my personal opinion, just for what he's done for the business, he should be in the Hall of Fame. But they were so great at that point, and a lot of guys had said in the past, a lot of the bigger guys in the business said that they called them vanilla midgets. But I'm gonna tell you something; these vanilla midgets got over and won gold. Same thing with Mysterio. So you cannot just discount it. And then and everybody needs to thank Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. They need to thank Rey Mysterio, and they need to thank guys like the Hardy Boys. Because if it wasn't for guys like that coming in the business, getting over with their style of wrestling, we wouldn't have a lot of the smaller guys today that had made it. And so these guys need to thank them for that, because they wasn't the biggest guys and the tallest guys, but they had a lot of talent, and it shined through finally. And a lot of the newer talent need to thank these guys for that, because they paved the way for them to be able to do what they like to do today. But moving along, we talked about the Hall of Fame. We talked about we got off in topics, which was great. I loved it. I loved talking about the '90s and the Mount Rushmore of promos, and talk about Dusty, because man, I was just watching Dusty earlier today, and I'm probably going to talk about it some more. I was watching that today, and dude, everything he did was just money. And I may have a soft spot for that era of wrestling. But growing up as a child, Dusty was one of my favorites. I went through changes. Okay, so my first pro wrestler I liked was Mr. Wrestling #2 out of Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was on WTBS before Crockett took the time slot later on. So I liked Mr. Wrestling too. He was a master wrestler. So I moved along. I found out about Hulk Hogan. I was a Hogan fan. Then I found out about Mid-Atlantic Wrestling with Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA and the Rock and Roll Express and the Road Warriors. And then I just fell in love. And then WWF was an afterthought when I got hooked. And which I should have got hooked on that wrestling, because that was our main area around here. My first show was the Roanoke Civic Center, July of 1986. I can remember one match on the card off the top of my head. Ric Flair and Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express in a steel cage match. Flair takes off Morton's face guard that he had on at the time, because he had broken Ricky's nose, the Horseman had, a couple months earlier. Threw it out in the crowd. So I remember that as a child. I was about 8 years old in '86. But I remember that. That was my first show. So, but yeah, as soon as I found out about Dusty Rhodes and TBS and the Mid-Atlantic and the NWA, I forgot all about WWF. It was an afterthought. Not that I didn't say I watched it, but anytime that I call it WCW because it came to that later. Anytime that was on, I watched it. So, but, so Mike, one more thing I was wanting to talk about today, if we can get it in here, is my trip to China in 2014.
No problem.
Yeah. So funny stories about that trip. I'm going to tell you. Well, before we get into them, let's talk about the talent that was on this trip, man. So it's under the WWN banner, the World Wrestling Network. Under that banner, you got other smaller groups, because that was the main name. You had Evolve, Full Impact Pro, and Shine. The Shine group was all girl wrestling. We did local shows around the Tampa, Florida, Orlando, Florida area. We would be like, it was a place in downtown Ybor, which is outside of Tampa, called the Orpheum. We would do what we called pay-per-views out of, but it would be streaming pay-per-views where you'd have to pay for it online, like $10 or $15, and which they had a big following because you had guys on it like Rich Swann at the time, Ricochet, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta got involved with this, Drew Gulak, AR Fox, Mia Yim, and the list goes on and on and on. Especially with the Shine group being all these lady wrestlers, that actually had pure talent. And I'm a big fan of women's wrestling when it's done right. And obviously they were doing something right there because of the talent. But anyway, move along. All this great talent, all them names I just named, and myself. And we go overseas to China for a 2-week tour. Did several shows over there. Man, it was so great over there. I got to referee this Rich Swann Trent Beretta match for the Full Impact Pro title. Rich Swann wins the title over there in China, and just to see the crowd so emotional in a different country, not over here in the States, but in a nice house, and they just go emotional, and they love Swann to death over there. Swann was like doing his entertaining stuff, like he would do. He liked Lionel Richie, so he'd sing all night long. He'd actually go out singing this to the ring and get the crowd involved, and they loved it over there in China, man. it was great to see that. It was just great to be a part of Rich's title win. And all that, man, I tell you, it was just a great, phenomenal tour from top to bottom. The country over there was gracious. Everybody was nice to us. We stayed in 5-star hotels. They fed us great. No complaints there. Got to see the Buddha temple. Got to go learn about Buddha. We went to some panda exhibits, a lot of other stuff. And then the nightclubs over there, dude, the nightclubs are wild because you would go in there and, you could sit down, everybody gets their drinks. But when you're one of the guys, I can't remember who it was exactly off the top of my head, gets up and he's got a beer in each hand. Well, he jumps on stage to dance with these 2 local girls over there, and the armed guards, and I'm not lying when I say this, their firearms look like 4 feet long, hanging off their back. They're like pulling him off stage, and I'm like, geez Louise, I'm like, this guy's either going to get killed over here or he's going to get us arrested. So that was interesting. They told us not to mess with the locals over there because the girls would pickpocket the travelers. But it was interesting to see all this. Different country, just a phenomenal trip. We had big houses everywhere we went over there. But we got the Chengdu Lung.
What's that?
The Chengdu Lung. I'm glad you asked. What's that, Mike? Well, I believe that was COVID before COVID was COVID. That was the horriblest shit I ever had. It was horrible than the time I got COVID here in the States. I swear, I mean, I had the chills for like a few days on. I was coughing. I felt bad, but I still made my shots. I still went to the arenas and went back and, didn't do nothing. Hardly ate for a few days. One night I was so bad, I was praying to the Lord above that I didn't die in China because I was afraid that my body would not come back to the States. So, yeah, that had crossed my mind. So, but other than that, I came back. I came back still sick as a dog when my wife picked me up at the airport, and I was just happy to be home. But I think I had vertigo for like 3 days. It felt like after I got back. I don't know what was up, but it was a good trip.
So you're the reason that we got COVID in 2020.
I may have brought it back to the States, yeah. But hey, Mike, listen. But I wasn't the only one. The whole group got this crap. So you can thank the World Wrestling Network and their talent for bringing COVID to the States, I believe. Yes.
We're all going to blame you, buddy.
I know. I get blamed for everything else anyway. So Mike, is there any topics that you'd like to touch on this episode, or what would you like to talk about, my man? Because I know we hit the Hall of Fame. We talked about various other topics, various other athletes. I know you're a big Stone Cold fan, big Dusty fan. We talked a little bit about them. But dude, I'm telling you right now, I really want to know. We talked about CENA earlier, but I just can't get off of that. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I watch it. Why hasn't CENA been on too many of the shows though? I mean, he does this heel turn at the pay-per-view, right?
Apparently it's because he's doing a movie schedule. He's supposed to be on Raw, I think, this Monday, but I think they're somewhere overseas, so it's going to work with his schedule. But yeah, his final year, he has 2 matches and showed up, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping we'll see him more, but apparently we can't see CENA. So.
Well, that's been the problem for the last 20 years. No one can see Cena. So,
We all didn't see the heel turn coming, but.
well, that was a surprise, but because no one ever thought it. And especially being his last year, why would you think he'd do it now? But, I'd like to, I know he's doing movies and stuff, but I'm telling you, once you turn him heel like that, in my personal opinion, he needs to, we need to see more of him. We need to see more of this feud, especially if it's going into Mania, we need to see more Cena. We need to see more confrontation between Cena and Rhodes. We need to see something, um,
I saw where I think it's supposed to be Monday Night Raw this Monday. He's supposed to be there, but I also heard a rumor that when he does, it's the storyline for many years. R-Truth. Cena was his childhood hero, which don't make no sense since R-Truth is older than John Cena.
mm-hmm.
But they're supposed to have a little. R-Truth is supposed to confront John Cena this Monday.
Okay.
Is Cena gonna beat up R-Truth? Is R-Truth going to go out there and try to be goofy like he normally is, and Cena just low blows him and beats him up, and then Cody Rhodes comes out and Cena runs away? Because you never see John Cena run away.
No.
Would Cody come down and scare him off?
What about,
That'd be cool to see that.
will we see little Jimmy?
No, I think Little Jimmy is going to be a heel on Cena's team.
Well, there we go, guys. It's out of the bag. Out of the bag now. Little Jimmy will be joining Cena's team. I'm just curious about that. So, here's the thing. So the AEW pay-per-view, I know I'm jumping around a lot. We saw recently what was Eddie Kingston's problem with AEW? I did not catch all that. Was it to do with the kid doing the power bomb? Or was it about something else? What is Eddie Kingston's problem? Because he went on social media complaining about not going back to AEW. Am I correct about this, or am I just imagining that happened?
Maybe I haven't heard that part, but he's been having trouble with AEW. Eddie Kingston, he's a hothead. You can just see it in the shows when he's there. He's just a hothead, and I just don't think he was used properly, and he didn't like the creative. So I think he, like, over time, he just don't want to be there no more.
Okay. Well, Mike, here's my thing, man, and I won't get on the soapbox too much about it, but here's the problem with that. You got guys get these jobs, and they're out for injuries, and they're coming back. I'm assuming he had an injury. That's what I understand. And he's coming. Okay, and he's coming back, right? What's the problem? What you're living your supposed dream. You're not doing a 9 to 5. You're not out here selling vacuums door to door. You get my gist. You're not out here doing something you don't want to do. And you have a problem with the way creative is, and you don't want to come back. I've never understood that. Because to me, they're in the pro wrestling business, and here's what I was taught when I got in the pro wrestling business. Pro wrestling is not something that, you can sit there and go, you deserve it. You don't deserve it. You earn it. You get in it, you earn it, you get the peers and everybody in it to acknowledge that you're there, and they take you in. When I broke in, you had to be accepted. I know it's changed a lot over the years since then, but when I got in, it was an honor. And I'm not saying it wasn't an honor for him or anybody else to get in, but my problem is with anybody bitching about their creative when they're making good money and you're employed doing something that you say you love, I never have got that. And it's not just, I'm not throwing shade at him. I'm throwing shade at anybody that had disagreements with their political situation in the business. Because at times when I got released, I would have done anything to go back. And and some of them times it was not the case. It was not even in the writing at all. So I just never got that. I don't get it. I don't understand why something so bad. I mean, let's just be honest. And some of the wrestlers have said this before. The older school guys, they're like, "Where are you going to go if you leave pro wrestling? Where are you going to go if that's all you've done your whole life? You know, it's going to be kind of hard to break into something. I mean, you're not going to have much of a choice. So I just don't get it. But anyway, I could go on all day about that.
Do you think it's just storyline? Because he's normally a heel,
It could
a
be.
hot hit heel. Like he
Yeah,
could just be coming back from injury, trying to get that heat.
you're right.
Because it's hard to get heat when you just coming back. Because everybody wants to cheer you and stuff. Maybe it's storyline. Maybe he meant to do all that, get on line, say whatever, just to get that heat.
Okay. Well, like I said, I have no problem. I don't even know Eddie Kingston at all. And I don't talk bad about people I don't know. I'm just saying I don't understand where this is coming from. And but I do know he's good friends with Homicide, and I love D. D's great. I worked with him in TNA, and I can't say anything bad about him as a human being or a professional. He's just one of the greatest human beings I ever met. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is a storyline. But I'd have liked to seen D come in and work with, Homicide, to work with AEW on a regular basis. I know he did some ROH shots for him, but maybe put them back as a tag team or something. I mean, something. I'd like to see D back. He's a good dude. He's friends with him, so maybe it is storyline. And whatever. If it ain't, it ain't. And I'm not gonna crucify anybody for having their opinion because we've all had our opinions about things. But I just don't get it. I mean, pro wrestling is supposed to be something we've all wanted and loved, and then sometimes you hear people say, "Well, I'll just quit and do whatever they say." I just don't get it. But it's a different conversation, I guess. Um, so with that being said, did you see the powerbomb the kid did?
I did not see it.
I don't. What do they call the Costco boys, the Costco guys, or something?
Yeah.
Well, one of the kids
What
come
is it?
in and he does the power bomb, not the shortest one that looks like he basically.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
Um,
Now let me ask you this.
I don't know why they did that. Like it's supposed to be wrestling, not people that's what the Costco kid.
Yeah.
Something about cookies, and then you got a kid power bombing a wrestler off the
Yeah.
top rope. Like
But
yeah,
I was going to say this though. If we don't agree with that, you remember the year at WrestleMania that Braun Strowman had that. What was that kid's name? And they won the tag title.
Nicholas.
Yes. Now, what do you think about that, though? Did Nicholas actually wrestle, or did he just won the title with him?
Oh no, Braun acted like he was
Because I don't remember it.
getting worn down. He was getting like worn down by Sheamus and Cesaro. He does like a hot tag to Nicholas. Nicholas comes in. They all looked at him like they was gonna kill him. He tags back out to Braun, and then Braun just destroys everybody up in the ring.
Oh,
So
okay.
he gets the tag, comes in, looks like he's scared to death, tags back out, and then he becomes one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions.
Oh, I see. Okay. Gotcha. See, I don't remember all that. So, but here's my thing. If we're going to get pissed at one kid doing something, shouldn't we get mad about all of them doing it?
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas was apparently the son of the referee that was actually doing that match.
Yeah, John Cone. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay. I remember
I
that
think so.
much. Yeah.
Um, but the Costco kid, like, the only thing if AEW and Costco got like a sponsorship deal,
Hmm.
it would maybe make sense a little bit. Like the whole Nicholas thing, like you kind of compare like that. But if they don't have a sponsorship, then I don't see why you got the Cookie Monster up in there doing a power bomb.
Okay.
Like,
That
like,
song's popular that they come out to. I saw it on Saturday Night Live one night.
yeah, they shouldn't be in the ring.
Okay. I'm not doubting that one bit. When it comes to doing the right thing in the ring, I agree with that. But then again, you got, here's the thing. If it's two sides of that coin there though. If they're not bringing popularity to the product and helping it, it don't need to be in there. But if it's somebody that can bring popularity to the product that doesn't, let's say you got a well-known actor or something, but it brings a mainstream watch. It makes sense at times, even though it may not look right. But I don't know. They kind of like their dad's actually a worker though, but they're not. So I don't know.
Yeah, leave the kids in daycare. You gotta do your job and go home and pick them up from daycare. Like, don't put them in the ring.
I don't know, Mike. I'm sensing maybe Mike's thinking about putting on a pair of tights one day.
If I did, I guarantee you the kids would not be in the ring.
Would you power bomb a kid?
No, they should not be in the ring.
You won't answer that one, will you?
No, I wouldn't power bomb no kid.
Let me ask you this: Do you think
Maybe
Jarrett?
super kick. Cool.
You think Jarrett should give a chair shot to him?
Chair shot?
I'm sorry, guitar. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why. I thought of a chair for some reason.
I think he needs to have two guitars and hit both the kids.
Okay.
And teach them to stay out of the ring. I mean, kids should not be in the ring unless if they're going to have a kids match.
Okay. Gotcha. Hey, I ain't saying I disagree. Just getting your opinion.
I mean, maybe if you put the kids against Hornswoggle, then maybe it'd be entertainment.
It may not be a fair fight for Hornswoggle at that point. Some of these kids, they're crazy.
I mean, that is true, but kids just need to go to daycare and stay out of the wrestling business until they turn 18.
Okay. Hold on, Mike. You know what? Listen, everyone. You heard it first. Mike said, keep the kids in daycare. Don't put them in the ring. There we go.
That's
right. So we talked about a lot of things today. And one more story I got real quick for us on the podcast today. And if you want to add anything afterwards, please do. But, we talked about R-Truth earlier. The 24/7 title comes up in question there, right? First off, before we go further with my story, is the 24/7 title even relevant anymore?
No.
Okay. When did it disappear?
I can't remember the times, but there was some weird stuff going on. The last holder of the title was actually Nikki Cross.
Okay.
She was walking backstage. She was walking backstage with 3 other female wrestlers after she won the title.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked like she was in like a trance. Like, just looked like she was out of it. She just walks around and she has the title and she was going to drop it in the trash can and stuff. But she misses the trash can completely. And they just walked away, and then that's how the 24/7 title disappeared from TV.
Okay. Good. Thank you for filling me in on that. I had no idea. I thought it was still around. I just wasn't seeing it on the new programs. So
no, I think they should have gave R-Truth the last championship ring with it, because he did a lot for that title.
He did.
I don't even know. He's got more championship reigns with 24/7 than Ric Flair does with World Championships.
Let me tell you this. Little known fact about R-Truth. Do you know who trained him? No? The same
No.
people that broke me in the business, which was the Italian Stallion and George South. He broke in with them a few years after me. I think it was around 97. And he was already so talented. You know, he did rapping, trying to get into that before the wrestling, that he was friends with Jackie Crockett, the camera guy for WCW, which was also fame of the Crockett family. And Jackie was trying to get R-Truth a position in WCW around 97, 98. Even had meetings with, from what I understand, Hogan and different various top people. And it just didn't work out, and he ended up getting signed later on by the WWF. So not many people know that. But speaking of the 24/7 title, though, the 24/7 title was invented in the year 1991 in the town of Concord, North Carolina, at Nikita Koloff's Fortress of Fitness. We had the NWA title. This is a true story. We had a foam belt from the NWA days, from the late 80s. I'm about 13 years old at the time. I started going to Nikita's gym, and we had my title, my foam belt, and we did this. I started cleaning the gym at 14 for Nikita. But anyway, we had the foam belt. We'd actually defend that title inside of Nikita's gym when it wasn't busy. Yeah. So when you saw the hardcore title matches and the 24/7 matches where they're getting pinned in bathrooms and stalls, it was happening in Nikita's gym in 91 by a bunch of teenagers and an independent and / WCW enhancement talent, Chuck Coates. We was having fun with that title. So there you go. 24/7 title. We thought of it first. We should have marketed it. You never would have got to use it, WWE. We're too late now, though. Anyway.
Yeah, just a little bit. You might be able to get the rights to it now. So they throw it in the trash can.
Ah, okay. What trash can in what city was this supposed belt thrown in, though?
I don't remember.
And how long ago?
It's been a few years, I think.
What? You said a few years.
I think so.
Jesus, Mike, that shows you how much I know about what's going on, I guess, in modern day wrestling, huh?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact year, but yeah, it was a weird way that they ended that title for sure.
I wonder if they got any 24/7 titles left in clearance, the replicas. You got to get rid of all of it.
Huh. Maybe.
We have to check up the site. I'll get one again and I start defending weird places around town.
All right, so I just looked it up. The title was retired on November 9th, 2022.
My God, I didn't even know that. Okay. I feel a little out of the loop. I mean, I still watch wrestling, but I did not know any of this 24/7 title stuff.
Like the champion, the 24/7 was only around like, it was like 3.5 years. But it had so much potential.
Right.
And they didn't capitalize on it. I think they started to, and then they made it to like why do we do this?
Yeah.
So they just make kind of like a joke of it.
Right.
And
Well,
stuff.
speaking of capitalizing on things, Mike, listen, everyone, go to davidprotein.com. Capitalize on savings on these great protein bars, different flavors. They're scrumptious, I'm telling you. Go there, davidprotein.com/Jamie T. Get the savings today. 28 grams of protein per protein bar. And I'm telling you, it's better than having 4 boiled eggs carried around your pocket. That protein bar slides right in your pocket a lot easier than carrying them eggs. You're going to smash your eggs. So get some protein bars today. So
hey, what is that promo code?
the promo is Jamie. It's davidprotein.com/Jamie T. And let's talk about another one, Mike. What about the Cowboy Revolution apparel company? CowboyRevolution.com. Go there at the end of the checkout on this one, guys, and put in Jamie T123, save 15%. Get you some stuff, get you some merch. In the weeks to come, we're going to have a couple more sponsors we're going to be talking about. That's in the works, but that's the two right now I want you guys to focus on and get you some savings. So, Mike, before we end this episode, what do you feel we need to mention? Anything else? Or are we good for this one, you think, bud?
I think we're good. We covered a lot of good stuff this time.
We covered a lot of topics, man. I'm telling you. So, listen, guys, Mike's going to be in here a lot more often than you think. So, Mike's going to be on here splitting the duties with my beautiful wife, Julia, as she's been on in the past. Mike's going to be on a few episodes, and then Julia will be back later on. And then we're going to have other guests me and Mike's going to bring on together and interview down the road. So be ready for that. You never know who from the world of professional wrestling is going to end up on this podcast in the future. And I guarantee you, if I don't hit him with a hard question, Mike's going to come on the – if I don't hit him in the right with a good question, Mike's going to hit him on the left. So we're going to get these people with some good questions later on down the road. And as always, if you need to hit up the podcast with a suggestion, a comment, suggestion, a question, whatever you want to do, tell Mike. Ask Mike a question if you don't want to ask me. Ask Julia a question you want to ask me. Just send in the questions, please. WrestleRef123 at gmail.com. That's WRESTLEREF123 at gmail.com. And I think it was a good episode. I enjoyed having you on, Mike, and I enjoy going down the road when we get these guests on for you to bring in your hard-hitting questions that I know you have. And hell, I might even let you take over the show.
No. I don't know if you're going to have a wrestling show by the time I get done with it.
Hey, controversy creates cash. We had this conversation earlier, and you said real-life situations come to make money. Maybe we can get a real-life situation on here and make some dough. I mean, you never know.
Well, who knows? We might become millionaires.
Hey, who knows? And if we don't, we're going to have fun doing it. Hey, Mike, thank you for being on this one, bud. I really appreciate it. And guys, I'm telling you, Mike's one of my best friends. And we became best friends through a job that I had here where I live. And we started talking about wrestling. He found out I was in the business. It made our talk about wrestling even more. He keeps up with the product nowadays a little more than I do. And he keeps me up to date with things. So I think it's going to be a nice addition to the podcast, and we're going to have a good time with this, bud.
Well, thank you, and thank you for letting me be on the show.
Absolutely, bud. Until next time, everyone, we'll see you.